I'm here live reporting from the jungle of Longboat Key. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you today about seawalls. What are seawalls? Why are they important? How do you maintain them? What types of materials are they? And just some of the pertinent details, because we live out here on the water and it's something that you're going to want to know. So stay tuned to today's video. Okay, I picked a precarious spot to do this, but I happen to be on my vacant lot for sale at 6580 Gulf of Mexico. It is a half an acre on the water, walk to the beach, so please inquire with me about the property. It's a buildable lot. Anyway, first of all, what is a seawall? So like, it's really hard to see back here, but can you see, like, there's not a seawall back here. So this is a spot that actually doesn't have a seawall. It's more of a natural seawall, which is kind of in and of itself a seawall. We also have vinyl and concrete, which are the two most popular seawalls that you'll find out here on the barrier islands or the mainland that require seawalls. But basically it's a retaining wall that keeps from the water intruding or eroding into the soil, so that it would come up into the soil and maybe eventually even into your house. So each seawall has its own set of requirements depending on the topography and the location and everything. And the stability is really important. So it requires engineers, and it requires a very specific skill set. We only have there's two top people in the Sarasota area I would consider, and I'll get to that more in detail. So you really want to make sure that you get with the right seawall company when you're talking a big project like this, as an aside. But it does require quality materials and advanced technology in order to prevent the erosion, to withstand strong winds and high waves. Especially, can you imagine this during a hurricane? I mean, like, you know, and we had during Hurricane Idalia, we also had a king tide, which means, oh, see, you can raise this up. We had a king tide, which means that the tides were already like a foot higher than normal, plus a hurricane, and then the wind factors in. So you really want to make sure that you have a very high quality seawall. I mean, we were out here, we had a listing appointment out here on the islands, and we noticed that a lot of the waves are coming well above the seawalls, and that's just part of living here. So let's move along so I can show you an actual seawall. All right, so here we are in a marina, which features, of course, as I mentioned, the more popular concrete seawall. So I'll show you a close-up of that, and so you can see a little bit better. But this is very common, and of course we want to maintain these because we don't want erosion. We don't want to decrease the value of our property. If a seawall is not maintained, it will lower the value of the property, not to mention the new owner is going to have to either cap it or repair, replace, and that is a very pricey investment in a new piece of real estate. So I would say about an 80-foot seawall, which is a common width of the water frontage, and they can go up or down, but let's just use 80 feet as an example. It could be $100,000 for a brand new full concrete seawall. Now, it would be less if you capped it. So according to any inspector, if they look at it and say, listen, we can cap this, it'll save you some money. And that's part of your maintenance, right? So it depends on, you know, how degenerated the seawall is as to whether or not they can cap it. So generally speaking, and I'm not a seawall expert by a long shot, but generally speaking, what you'll start to notice on a seawall that needs repair or replacement is you'll start to see long cracks. You'll start to see the seawall kind of leaning inward, like inward toward the residence versus the water frontage, I learned. And you'll also start to see, like, when they put the rebar in, you'll start to see like rusting around the various places that they put the rebar in. So those are indicative of, you know, maybe time to have it looked at for sure. And especially if you're trying to sell, because as an agent, we want to know like how much life expectancy that has, because that'll come into play in terms of any negotiations. So it's really important that we know as much as possible in order to represent you in your best interest and negotiate on your behalf. All right, so switching gears, over the last 40 to 50 years, the state of Florida has built seawalls out of treated timber. I I don't know if I've ever seen a treated timber seawall. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know where that would even be. Okay, treated timber, obviously the concrete, steel and aluminum. I've seen steel and aluminum. I know I've seen aluminum, like the corrugated aluminum before. Coquina rock, concrete bags, and even asbestos sheeting. Okay, obviously this goes to show that I'm not an expert in seawalls, but I'm always learning. Definitely every single residence is a learning experience, including the seawall component. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention seawalls on the beach side. Yes, we have seawalls on the beach side. Actually, Portobello is one on Longboat Key, right in the middle of the island. You have a nice seawall there. It does protect the sand. It makes it wider and longer. It helps the erosion to the building side. There's so many benefits with high rising tides. So there actually is another type of seawall. It's actually vinyl. Now, there's been some studies about vinyl compared to especially concrete and some of the disadvantages and advantages. Well, I guess the main advantage for a homeowner is it's generally less costly and it's supposed to last a lot longer, but it might not be as good for the environment. And there was an article in the Observer back in July of this year, July 23rd of this year, that talked about the reasons why vinyl might not be as good for the environment. So they did a study and they looked at, it was 32 seawalls in the Sarasota Bay area, 16 concrete and 16 vinyl, so 50-50. Of the 16 concrete seawalls, all had a considerable amount of oysters growing on them. Only 6 of the 16 vinyl seawalls had any oysters attached. And why is that important, or why do we care? Because oysters, I learned, help clean the waste out of the water. So like fertilizer, grass and pesticides, things like that, waste, any other kind of waste, they clean the water. So it keeps the environment clean in a natural way. So we like oysters, we like oyster beds, and they're really good to eat too. Now, I mentioned capping. So there are stages in a seawall that you don't have to do a whole new seawall. You could actually cap it, which means using the existing seawall, but capping it out so that it stays secure for a longer period of time. I've heard that in those cases, it could last 20 years or so, 10 to 20. They usually like to give a really large range. But a brand new seawall is supposed to last upwards of like 40-ish years. So, I mean, they're like a metal roof. Metal roofs are supposed to last about the same. So they are definitely an investment, and one that can certainly add value to your property or lower the value depending on how old it is, right? So it's like everything, it's all relative. So anyway, that kind of gives you an idea of seawalls, I hope. And again, if you need a reference of some people, and I know how busy everybody is, please reach out to me. And we've got some great listings. I've got some coming up that I can't quite talk to you about, but exciting things happening as this fourth quarter ends out in 2023. It's starting to feel like fall here, clearly, with the sweater on. It's great, especially down here by the water. So I want to hear from you as well, whether I could be a resource in terms of real estate, or maybe you need a vendor here locally. I've been here almost 22 years. And so vendors come and go, quality comes and goes. I've really honed in on a really great vendor list. I know how hard it is to reach people, contractors, and it's always a struggle bus. I've actually got a handyman coming up here on the show soon as well, which we all need handymen or women. So also, if you are interested in the equity position of your property and you want, I'm trying not to fall in the water here, the edge of the dock is right here. If you want an accurate depiction of your property, Zillow is all over the place. It's frustrating. So if you want an accurate depiction of your property, I would love to come see your home. I'd love to come meet you. I would love to hear from you. You can email me, Shayla, Shayla, Twit, twit@gmail.com, or call or text my cell, 941-544-7690.